Okay, for many years I've been wondering what a nice girl like me is doing in Brooklyn. Today I'm sitting here talking about Des Moines, where I came from, with my brother and sister. And we're talking about old memories of our grandparents.
Indeed, yes.
And August and Emma Norbum and Lily and John O. Mitchell. And I remember the Mitchells better because the Norbums moved to Florida when we were children. And the Mitchells lived in Des Moines and also in Davenport. And we always spent Christmas and Thanksgiving at their house. And the main thing I remember is the men all took a nap after the turkey. And Grandpa played Santa Claus. Grandpa Mitchell played Santa Claus and handed out the presents. And Grandpa Mitchell he'd been a high school principal. And when he retired, he had a workshop where he liked to make things. And he became an ardent tinkerer or sort of carpenter there. And I have a wonderful little chair he made, and he made all sorts of things. We had boxes out of aluminum with our name stamped in it, and he was always trying to think of things to make. And so that was.
I still use his tools. I have quite a few of his tools
Do
in my
you
shop.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Little screwdrivers he made, and just little things that he made and things he used too, for tools.
And he used to make biscuits.
Yes.
And he had these wonderful hands with hair on the back and stubby fingers, but he always wore some good, and he treated the biscuit dough like it was very precious, and I could just see his hands flipping the biscuits, placing them on. He taught us how to do that. And then he put up swings on the porch of their house. And there were only 2 swings and 3 of us, so there's a lot of dumping of siblings. And then we'd listen to their conversations because we'd find other monkey shines to do. And then the Norbums.
The Norbums, Grandpa Norbum died when I was 3, so I have no memories of him. But Grandma Norbum, she would come and visit us and stay with us, and she'd live with me in my room. And so I remember she'd get up and walk around, and you could hear her feet shuffling on the floor because she didn't pick her feet up. But she was the dearest lady, and she and I were roommates for many months. And then she'd always say, "Did you ever?"
Did you ever?
Yes.
Didn't she come and feel your feet too to see if
Yeah,
you're warm
probably.
enough? And so in the middle of the night, someone would grab his feet. It was Grandma checking to see if they were warm enough.
Yeah.
She was so sweet.
She was really a sweet lady.
Yeah.
And, but I remember going over to Grandma and Grandpa Mitchell's house when they lived in Des Moines, I think. They lived on 38th Street, just off Center, they'd call it. And it was right on the corner of Center and 38th Street.
Was that by the railroad tracks?
No,
Oh.
no, this was over
There
in
was
West.
a okay.
They lived in several houses in Des Moines,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that was the one I remember the most. And I remember the last memory I have of that is when I was in high school. I went over and helped Grandpa put his storm windows on one fall. That was probably his last fall. But he had the shop down in his basement, and I'd go down and he'd show me how to make things. And then I remember Grandma Mitchell, we called her Granky.
Yeah.
I think she made a lot of pickled pig's feet and pickled beets, and
Yes.
I never liked either one.
And all the adults loved the pickled pig's feet, but we thought that
Yeah,
was
Mother
great.
did too.
They did. Yeah.
We thought they were gross.
I did too. I still do. But and then we remember going to Davenport to their house on Denison Street,
That's right.
and I remember that, and sitting on Grandpa's lap because he had a great big lap. And, as you said, he had these
Huge
big,
man.
He's a huge man, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think he was a very good school principal. I don't think today he would have been politically correct, because I think when those days when kids misbehaved, He knew how to quickly.
They went to the office where he kept the switches.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably the kind of principal they need these days. But they were.
I remember being so proud of Grandpa Norman because he was he was a fine minister and very
Mhm.
active in the Lutheran Church, and he, well, one time he also belonged to the Synod and represented the Synod, and he went to Europe, did he not, on a little
Oh, yes,
sabbatical?
yes.
Without Mama.
And without Grandma, and Grandma's sweet as she could be, but she had put 4 or
She
5
stayed
kids
home and take
to
good
get
care
her
of the
kids,
children.
so August could go to Sweden. Yeah. And then she brought back pictures, unless some really fine pictures, but one of them was Grandpa sitting on top of a horse-driven surrey in a black velvet hat.
Top
I mean,
hat.
top hat. I mean, he was such an elegant-looking man, and I'll never forget the picture of his European trip. You know, looking like perhaps a prince.
Yes, he was.
But he was.
Well, this
remarkable.
ring I'm wearing, he gave to Grandma
Oh, that's.
for staying home.
For staying on Wahoo.
Yes,
Oh.
this diamond ring.
I didn't remember that.
No.
That's.
I didn't either, but this is, it might not even be true, but I think it is.
Well, I'm sure it is.
I'd like to think of that too.
Yes.
What else about those two?
Well, they were really nice grandparents, and we got to know most of them. But they said Grandpa Norman his legacy still stands at the First Lutheran Church. If you go back to Des Moines First Lutheran Church and look in their back hallway, there's a picture of him because he was the pastor
Yeah,
there
yeah.
for.
Well, he came here as a poor boy from Sweden, and he worked as a bricklayer first, and he put himself through school and through seminary, and he became a very important minister, really.
Yeah.
He had a lot of influence. He started the Lutheran Brotherhood to provide support for the Lutheran men in the army during the First World War.
Yeah.
And he originated that, which has grown to become one of the biggest life insurance companies in America,
Mhm.
very, very important. But he was president of the Synod, and he organized different things. I mean, he really led a very sort of active life.
Oh, I think so. I was always very proud that
And
I
he
was
was
a
a
grandchild.
musician too.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
He composed hymns,
Mm-hmm.
and they're still in that Lutheran. I found 2 of them in the Lutheran hymnal just about a month ago.
Did you really?
Still.
Really?
Yep.
We have a picture of him in the orchestra he organized in Kansas, one of his earlier parishes, and he organized an orchestra there, conducted it. But it was big. I mean, they had, it must have been 20
I think so.
people.
Yeah. That's remarkable. And Grandma just supported him.
Yes, Grandma.
Well, she was the.
You could call her a matriarch, because that's sort
She
of,
was.
but because she was so gentle and sweet and oblique in her
That's-
suggestions.
She would not say deviled eggs. Remember, she'd say deviled eggs. She said
That's that's right.
Do you remember that?
she would not say the devil. So she's a very pious lady.
We were lucky.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
Nice